Hello all you lovely people online. Today I'm going to give you a crash course on how to use Divi. Now first off we have our dashboard here, the kind of thing you'd see with any WordPress site, but for Divi we're going to go down to Divi and I'm going to start with looking at the theme options. Now with theme options you'll get a lot of options here, but I'll go through them slowly here. So first we have the logo. Basically here you can just upload and select whatever you want to basically be the logo for your website. The fixed navigation bar basically sets it so that the nav bar at the top will be at the top at all times, basically. Divi Gallery is for the gallery options for WordPress. Rather than using WordPress's gallery feature, you would instead use the Divi Gallery feature. Color palette here, you can basically set whatever colors you want for your website. Like say, I don't know, let's have like a gray color. Let's have something a bit gray. Maybe something like this or so. And now that color is now set as one of the colors on our page here. Grab the first post image is basically for when you have a blog post or whatever. Rather than using whatever you set the feature image as, it will actually take whatever the first image on the blog page is. Blog style mode basically sets it so that for index pages of websites, rather than doing a abridged version of a blog post, it will do just the full version of the post on the index page. Sidebar layout and shop page and category page layout for WooCommerce basically set it for where the sidebar will appear on a website, as well as for the shop page stuff for WooCommerce. Google API key, this is more for things where if you're using Google's API features, you can input your key here for API. Using Google fonts enables it so that if a person's device doesn't have the fonts you have on your website, it will default to fonts that Google has. There are also Google font subsets which you can enable or not. Then we have other items here, basically stuff like, do you want to show the Facebook icon, Twitter, social media icons, which you can choose to have if you want, or you can also choose not to have them because you might not need those things. Maybe you're not trying to advertise social media pages, but those are definitely there as options. And then down here, you can set the URL for wherever those icons need to lead to, whatever Facebook page or Twitter, things like that. Here we have the default number of items that will display per type of page, basically. Like here we have number of posts displayed on category page. Basically here on a page that's meant to be like for categories, it will only show up to 6 posts on that page. And then same with things like archive pages. It just is like a default, but you can change it. I can set it to say 6, like on the category page, and it will show up to 6 posts on the archive pages. We also have some items here as well. We can enable smooth scrolling, which basically makes it so that the scrolling experience will be a lot more smoother. When you're scrolling up and down, it'll look nice rather than it being kind of just janky looking. It might be a bit rough. The back to top button sets it so that if you scroll all the way down to a page, you can just click the button and it will take you all the way back to the top of the page. So then we have disabled translations, which basically has it so that it's like you don't want to have just like a string of a translated language if a website is using a translator device. Like if you're using like Google's like built-in translate feature, which you might want if whatever the translation is a bit messed up, but usually you want to disable that. You want to make sure people from all over the world can go to your website. Responsive images has it so that images will be able to adjust in size depending on the screen size. So then that way an image won't like be massive if you're on a smartphone or tiny if they're on a laptop. And then one thing I did forget to mention is use excerpts when defined. This is basically meant to be for the posts. You can have excerpts there just to kind of give an abridged kind of take on what a blog post is, rather than having it just be a little just whatever the first chunk of the blog post is. It'll instead just have a defined excerpt for that page. And then here we have custom CSS, where for the whole website, you can have your own custom CSS that you want to use for that page. Scrolling back up, here's performance. So then here in performance, we have various things we can do for performance. For example, dynamic CSS and module framework. This sets it so that your website will only really load in whatever is essential CSS for your page at that time, which greatly helps with loading in your pages and with speed. And then we have critical CSS, which is basically meant to be looking at whatever parts of the CSS might hinder the code, like stuff that might be useful, but also it might slow things down, and it will just cut that stuff out. We have dynamic JavaScript libraries, WordPress emojis, stuff like this. Again, a lot of the stuff on this page is meant to be for making your website faster, making and making it a bit of an easier time for everyone. All right, here in navigation, here's basically how we can work on the navigation settings for your Divi site. So for example, we have exclude from pages from the navigation bar. We can set if we want certain pages to be excluded. So for example, we can set it so that the sample page here will not appear on the navigation bar. We can have a drop-down menu that will appear when it's a smaller screen, so in that way you can just click the hamburger symbol and then you'll have the drop-down menu appear. You can have home links, links to your home page. You can kind of have the links in ascending or descending order, the number of drop-down tiers shown. You have a lot of really useful stuff here that you can have for editing your navigation for pages. And then categories, this is meant to basically be what you would want to appear in the navigation category-wise, like for blog posts. Like you have uncategorized, but you might have other categories you've set, like say, I don't know, slice of life, things like that basically. And then here in general settings, we have disable top tier drop-down menu links. The main purpose of this is to have it so that when you do a drop-down menu and you hover over an item, there might be an additional drop-down menu that will appear alongside that, basically. The main point of this is to disable that, so whatever drop-down menu comes up is just one. There aren't multiple tiers of drop-down menus. Here we have the builder, which basically sets it so that we can set the Divi Builder, which we'll get into later. With Builder, we can have it so that we can set the Builder options to appear on only specific pages, like maybe we want it to appear on pages but not posts. So that's kind of a nice option we have for using Divi's theme builder. Advanced allows for a little bit more stuff, like you can have set it so that whatever the latest Divi Builder experience is, you'll be able to use that right away rather than whatever one you used when you first made your Divi site. Then we have static CSS file generation, which allows for CSS files that are like in line with your web page to be cached, which can help with the speed of the website. And then you also have the enable classic editor, which sets it so that rather than using Divi's newer theme builder, you can actually use more of an older, kind of more classic style editor that you could use for older WordPress or Divi sites. Layout here is basically for how you want your posts and your pages to have the layout to be, such as showing which items you want to display on a post, like the author, the date, category, comments. We can click on them to make sure that they don't appear, like maybe I don't want to have the category to appear, so we can disable that. We can set it here to show comments on a post, as well as to show the thumbnail for that post as well. The single page layout has it so that you can place thumbnails on pages, not just on a blog post, as well as showing comments for a page. I don't want to do that for this page, so I have both of these options disabled. And then we have some general settings, which is again like stuff that we'd have before. Like we can set what stuff will appear in the info section, and we can also show thumbnails for posts on index pages as well. And then here we have ads, which I have disabled because I personally don't want them on my website, but if you do, you can enable ads so that you can set certain types of ads to appear, like a banner or even like destination URLs, stuff like that basically. You can also have the code for whatever the AdSense will be for the ads on your website. And then we have SEO, which stands for Search Engine Optimization. Basically, what this means is if someone makes a post on something that your website is about, like say anchovies as a random example, your website will appear as close to the top as possible. And you want to make sure you appear on top if you want more people to click on your website and give yourself some new views and some interaction on your website. So first off, we have things like enable a custom title, which we can do if we want to have titles for websites be our own custom-built titles rather than whatever the page was created as when we first make the page. We can enable meta descriptions, which will basically be stuff that will appear, like if we were to do a Google search right now, like Google, I don't know, Apple. If we were to Google Apple right now, this kind of meta text right here, this is the kind of stuff that will appear in your website for search engine optimization. And then we have meta keywords, which basically has it so that certain keywords could be kind of focused on, like say, again, if you're doing like a ocean-based website, you might have keywords titled ocean, aquatic, things like that. So enable canonical URLs, basically what this means is it will prevent like duplications of your website stuff appearing in search engines, which would be good because you may get some penalties if you get duplicates of the same page popping up on search engines. And then again, here's the stuff you would do, like if enabled for your homepage, you can do a custom title, a meta description, keywords, stuff like that. Here basically, if we had custom titles disabled, we can basically set how we would want it to appear, like blog name as in one word, blog description, or maybe the other way around, or maybe just blog name only. We can define a character to separate the blog name and the post title, which here is just a line. But these are things we can do. And then it's kind of the same things basically for single post pages as well, but there are some differences here, like custom field names to be used in titles, field names for description keywords. A lot of it is still pretty similar, like custom titles and custom keywords, but there are some slight little differences in how they're handled. And then, yeah, you have index page SEO here, but it's a lot more stripped down because you're not going to have as much stuff here. You're just going to have the index pages. You're just indexing posts and other pages. And then here we have integration, which is mostly for code. So if we have enable header code, all of the code in the header will be enabled. But if we disable this, then we can remove all of that header code, and we could potentially use that for later code. Same with body code and single top and bottom code. We can set it so that we can disable that, and that code will be removed from pages, and we can maybe use that later. And then here we have our own area to add our own custom code to the head of our blog. Our own sort of stuff there. We can have our own custom code for the body, code at the top of our posts, at the bottom, before comments. Here we can basically put in our own custom code here, which is a pretty useful feature if you want to do certain things that Divi's customizer might not have. And then last here in Divi theme options, we have updates, which is basically allows you to do updates to Divi through here, but you will need to get a elegant theme subscription. You'll need to enter in your username, your API key, stuff like that. But also you can do a rollback to a previous version of Divi. Now again, I know there's a lot of things in here, and I might not have touched on some things as much as you'd like, but I'm just wanting to kind of give you a general view of Divi's theme options now, because you can look more into these things on your own, but right now I just kind of want to show you the general stuff before I go into some other things in a bit more detail. All right, now we're going to go and check out the theme customizer with Divi. Now, one thing that you will very quickly notice with the theme customizer is that it's very similar to the kind of stuff that you might see with other WordPress themes. They'll have a similar look where you'll have these options on the side and you'll see your page over here. But there are some little differences here that I'll kind of go into. So one thing first off we have is with the general settings. This is kind of the standard stuff, site identity, where you have like the site's title. You can set what the icon is here. In this case, I just have this whale image. And then we have like layout settings where we can change things up here. We can change up the content width. We can change the height of each section. We can do that, see how big each section is. We'll just reset that. We can set the row height. We can set the accent color to whatever we want. We have it just kind of as just this blue color for now, but we can set it to whatever we want. We have typography where we can set how big we want the body text to be. We'll just set it to like 15. We can set how the height will be for a line of text. We can set the spacing between letters. We can make it as far out as we want in the header, or we can just keep it whatever. We can set the line height for headers as well, see how much space there is between lines of headers. We can set what the style is if we want it to be bold, italicized, underline, all that stuff. We can choose the font. We can set what the body text color is, a lot of the stuff you'd see there. And then again, one thing you've seen probably before, to save what you've done and to publish it, just hit the publish button. This will load through, and then this will basically save all of your changes. And then we also have background here, where we can set what the background color is, or we can even just set an image to be the background. And then we have a lot of other things here as well, as you can see. We'll go into header navigation. We can set items for what the header format is, if we want it to be default, if we want vertical navigation, if we want the navigation to be hidden until we need to scroll. And here with the primary menu bar, we can set things however we want. We can set the menu height, the logo max height, text size, spacing, font, a lot of these things here. And then with other menu bars, it's going to be kind of the similar stuff here. Just kind of all the things, text size, letter spacing, though we can also set it so that it'll be a full width secondary menu bar if we want. We can also do fixed navigation settings. Again, a lot of things you'll see in here you've probably seen before with the other things I've shown you, like height, size, the coloring, stuff like that for there. And then with the footer, we have this area widgets. Now with widgets, this is basically the stuff that we have here, essentially. These items here, I just have text, but we can change what the size of the text will be. We can make it very large. We can make it very small. Whatever we want, really. We can set the height of the line height for the body and links. We can set the text color, header color, all sorts of things there with the widgets. And again, just widgets. Now what I have it set to right now is just basic text for the widgets right now, but you can set it to other things. You can even set it to be links like social media icons, like the Facebook logo, things like that, that you can use to link to it. We have footer elements. We can do show social icons, which as you see in the very bottom, because there's a secondary bottom row here, but with this we can set it so that we can show the social media icons for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, stuff like that. We also have the footer menu, kind of the options here. If we were to change some sizing here, we have things like that basically. The bottom bar, this is like, again, the very bottom. We have the color here just as like 22222, but we can also set it to be just a blue or gray or whatever, but we'll just keep it as this 22, 22, 22 to make sure that it kind of matches up with what we have up here. Then we'll publish our work here, we'll save it. And if you want to deal with a specific element in the footer, you can click on the pencil icon next to an element and you'll get a more specific area to edit that part of the footer. And if you go back here, you can select different sections in the footer to edit like so. And then yeah, as you can see there, that's the widgets and stuff in the footer. This is the area we can mess with them. This is area 1, which is here, and then 2, 3, 4 for the widget areas in the bottom. But then also we have options for the button and just other buttons and stuff. We can set it so that what the style will be when we're with the button. Again, a lot of the stuff I'm going over here you've seen before, like text color, background, but one thing also is border radius. Now with this it basically sets it so that the radius of the border, if it'll have like more rounded corners or not. That sort of thing. Yeah, we have button icons. We can select what the icons are, the icon placement, all that stuff. We have hover style, where basically when you're hovering over a button, it will set what will happen to that. Like it might make it, we can set it so that if you're hovering over a button, it'll become orange or red, things like that. Basically, we can do that here. Blog, this is basically meant to edit like how things will be in a blog post, what the text size will be for the meta text, what the header text size will be, header letter spacing, stuff like that. We have mobile styles, which will allow us to set how certain elements will look in a mobile version of the website. Like we can set it so that like tablet, we can change the section height for tablets. We can set the row height, the body text height, things like that. For phones, even smaller, we can set it however we want. We can set the row height to be a little bit larger if we need to. Text size, we can make it a little bit smaller or a little bit bigger. Whatever we really need to, really. Mobile menu, basically this is for the menu where, rather than what we had before where we had the page options here we have this hamburger menu which we can just click. And then we have the options here. We can set what the text color is. We can hide the logo if we want to for mobile menus. We'll keep it on here though. But that's kind of the main things you can do if you want to edit it for smaller screens rather than for desktops. We also have color schemes basically, where here you can choose what the color scheme will be. We just have default, but we can also choose color schemes to be based on other colors such as green, orange, pink, and red. Then we have menus where we can kind of set menus how we want. We have main menu here, which is a menu that I made previously, where we have the home page and the really cool page for cool people, obviously. And we have these options here. We can set where the location is, such as the primary menu, which is up here, but we can also have it be a secondary menu or like a footer menu. And as you'll see here, once we get down there, we now have a secondary footer menu here. And then we'll also have a secondary menu, just to show you guys what these things look like. Here's the secondary menu. So we have all these options here basically for different kinds of menus. I just want to keep the primary menu. I don't really want the secondary or footer menu, so I'll remove those and I'll publish the page. We'll now go back to the main. We'll exit here, and then we're going to go widgets. I already showed you. Homepage settings. These are what we can do with home pages for homepage displays. Rather than it being a static page, we can have it be our latest post, like our latest blog post. I don't want to do that personally. I just want to keep a static page. What do we want the homepage to be? I can set it to be home, or I can set it to be the really cool page for really cool people. And even like the sample page that WordPress made just automatically when we first made this website. And then we have post page, where basically this will be where blog posts and stuff will appear, like on the home page, sample page, really cool page for cool people, things like that basically. And then finally here we have additional CSS, which is where we can put in our own custom CSS. And yeah, that's kind of the basics of the theme customizer here. It's, again, as I said before, you'll see stuff similar to this in other theme customizers in WordPress, but here's just kind of a way of going through all the stuff with Divi's, because there's probably some variations to how Divi has their theme customizer rather than others. But yeah, that's Divi's theme customizer. All right, let's make a new page with Divi. So first off, we're going to go into Pages and select Add New. You're going to see a initial page that you'd see with any other WordPress site, but you'll notice the big Build Your Layout Using Divi thing here. So first, we're going to add a title. I'll just call it The Good Place. I don't know why. And then we're going to make sure to hit Use Divi Builder. If we hit Default Editor, that will use WordPress's default editor built into it. For this, we want to use the Divi Builder. So click that. It'll save a draft here. It'll load in. All right, so now you get to select options here. You can build from scratch, which is basically just using from the ground up your own themes and styles. You can choose a pre-made layout, which is something that Divi already has, or you can clone an existing page already on your website. For this, we're going to do a build from scratch. All right, and here we are in the row area for the theme builder. Here we have many row options we can have. We can have just one row where it's just for one element. This is for 2 elements on a row, 3 elements, and so on and so forth. You even have some special ones here where some elements will be smaller than others. For here, I'm just going to do just one row. Now we have to select a module. There are a lot of module options here. You'll see things like the circle counter, a code module, comments. For this, I'm just going to use a simple text module. And now here in the text module, we have a lot of options here. First, we have the body. The body here basically is just what will actually be the text. So I will select this, and now we can add in our own text. You know, like here is the good place. Do not mess this up. Just something fun, you know? And then you have the visual option here, but then you have the text option, which basically makes it look more just like a simple text editor. You can add in more stuff here, more stuff. But you have the visual side here that is more like, it has more options. Like you can select what type of text you can have. Like for example, we can make more stuff here, a header. And as you can see here, these headers are numbered. The lower the number, the bigger the header will be. Like heading 1 will be the biggest, heading 2 will be the second biggest, and so on and so forth. We'll do heading 2. And then we have some other options here in the Content tab. Link basically allows us to have this module link to another page if we want, and we can have it open either in the same window or in a new tab. Background is basically what we can have to set as a background for this row. Like we can have it be just a color, we can have these colors, or we can just not have any colors. We can have a background gradient, an image, a video, pattern, a mask. We can have a lot of things for what we want here. We also have an admin label, which basically makes it so that we can have this be set as something for when we're messing with the modules. Like I'll just call this admin label beginner. If I were to save that, and if we were to go into the wireframe mode here, it'll be called beginner. It's a good way to help with organization and to make sure that you know what each module will be. You can name them wisely, so in that way you'll know what each module will be. But going back into here, we have the design tab also. And the design tab has a lot of very good options for how we want the text here to look. For example, we have text. We can set how we want the text to look. We can set the font to be whatever, a BZ. We could set it to be a bolder weight. We can also set the font style to be italics or underlined or crossed out. We can set the text color however we want. We can set the size to be something a bit bigger maybe, like 32 pixels. Letter spacing has the spacing between letters, so we can do this to basically just make the spacing between text to be a bit more spaced out if we want. Line height is more of the gap between lines of text. We can set the line height to be a bit higher here. We can add a shadow if we want. Text alignment is meant to allow for aligning the text how we want. We want it left aligned here, but we can also do it center or right aligned. We can have the text color be light or dark. Light is horrible, you can't even see it, so we're going to have it be dark. Heading text is for editing the header text. We want to select which header we want to edit. Since we set more stuff to be a header 2, we're going to use H2 here to edit it. We can set the font however we want. April Fatface, I didn't even know that was a font, but here we are. Make it a bolder weight. We can make it italicized. Let's center align it here. We can change the color, the size. A lot of the stuff like you saw in the text options you have here for header text as well. And then finally we have sizing, which is for the module as a whole. Like say we can make the width a bit smaller, or we can make the max width, which now this might not look like much here, like I'm not doing anything here, but basically with max width, it sets it to what the maximum width will be for a module. Here, the max width is at 36%. So here, we can set the width to be 0 or up to 36%. But if we go higher than 36%, it will not change. It will be just as high as it is for 36%. If we were to change this, like say make it 67%, again, we can make it like 30% or so, or we can make it up to 67, but we can't go past 67%. We can set the module alignment. We can set it to be more in the middle or on the right. We'll set it in the middle here. The height settings are meant for the height of the module. We can make them high. We can make them whatever we want, really. I'll just have it be auto. But with max height, it's much like with the max width. We can set the height to be the maximum of however we want. And then we can have it basically be however much we want the height to be, but it will never exceed the max height. Min height is basically like the opposite. Whatever we set the minimum height to be, if we were to go down to be lower, it will never exceed whatever the minimum height is. We cannot go lower than what the minimum height is set as. Spacing is for margin and padding, basically, with where the elements will be. Now, to give you a brief idea on what margin and padding is, margin is kind of like the box surrounding a module. If we were to do the margin top here, we can move it so that it will push the module down. Padding is more like the stuff within that box. It is the space within that box we are changing. So we can do padding top here, and it will move the module as well. The best way to think of it is thinking like it's a box, basically. The margin is the main box itself that surrounds a module, while the padding is the space within that box, with padding in between the content and the margin. Border here, we can add a border if we want. We can make it a solid border. Let's add it a 4 pixels. We can make it orange if we want. We can set it to be like so, make it a bit thinner. We can have it just be on the top. We can set the width however we want. We can make it a bit thinner. We can also update specific parts of that border, like we can make border top a lot thicker than the rest of the border. We can make it a bit more grooved. And as you can see again, this affects just that part of the border. We can make the rest of the border more inset if we want. And then we have box shadow here, which is basically, it allows us to have a shadow for the module. And we can set that shadow however we want. I don't really want a shadow. And then we have filters, which is how we can update certain aspects of the visual look of it. We can make the hue a bit more blue if we want. We can make the saturation, we can just desaturate it, making it a bit more gray, or we can oversaturate, making it a bit more crisper, the color. We can make it a bit brighter if we want. We can update the contrast, or we can also invert the colors to give an inverted color tone. We can also update the sepia. We can add a sepia here to give it a bit of an older, bit of a yellowish hue to it. Opacity is how we can basically make this a bit more transparent. We can add a blur if we want to make it so that it's a bit harder to see. And then we also have blend modes here, where we can update how the blend for the filter will be. We'll do an overlay blend here. Transform allows us to do some little changes to the location of a module. Like for example, we can transform it, we can make it a bit larger. We can also move it a little bit here. We can rotate it like this way, or we can rotate it this way, and maybe this way. We can also add a bit of a skew if we want, make it a bit more like a diamond shape if we want. We can also move the origin a bit, move it around a bit more, however we want. We can also add an animation to it too. Like for example, we can add in a fade animation. We can set how long that animation will be. We can also add a delay for when that will happen. And basically this way it allows, so if we were to load into the page, it will do this sort of fade-in type animation when we first load into the page. We can also set the speed curve. We can make it ease in and out. We can make it more of an ease. We can just have it be an ease in. We can be linear. We have a lot of options for how we want the speed curve to be. We can also have it repeat if we want, or we can just have it happen once. And yeah, these are the main things in the design tab. And then finally we have advance. Advance offers a bit more stuff that you can do with like your own custom code. For example, we have the CSS ID and classes, where we can add an ID or a class to this module. So then that way, if we do our own custom code, we can affect this specific module by simply using the ID as an identifier for it in the code. We can add, I don't know, just opener as the CSS ID. And then also, just to give a bit of a difference between an ID and a class, an ID in CSS is usually used for one item on a web page in HTML, while class is meant to be used for multiple items in an HTML file. We have our own custom CSS here, where we can add some code here to the main element if we want, or we can add some stuff before and after, which basically means we can add some custom CSS that will appear before the module or after the module. Conditions is basically when we can add certain conditions on how it will display. We can add a condition here. We can add like a location, things like that. Visibility here is very useful for setting it so that certain modules will be visible on certain viewing devices. Like for example, we can have this be disabled on phones and tablets so that you can't see this module on either your smartphone or a tablet. And we can see here, if we were to shrink the size down, we could have it be that like it isn't viewable. It doesn't look like it now, but keep in mind also, there's a bit of a slight transparency to it when it's disabled. Like if I were to save this, and then also one other thing too, in order to save all of your work, you need to hit publish. Hit publish, and once you hit publish, not only will it save what you've done, but it will also publish that website for your WordPress page. So we're going to save, and then we're going to exit the Visual Builder here. There we go. Let's exit the Visual Builder. It's loading in, and as you can see, it loads in. All of the stuff we've done is here. And if we were to do an inspect and the size, as you can see, we cannot see it except for when we're on a desktop size. Once we're in tablet sizes, though, it's nowhere to be seen. So we're going to go back into the Visual Builder, and I'll show you more of the Advanced tab. It's loading in here. We will hit the gear icon. We're going to hit Advance. And then we have the Transitions tab here, which is meant for transitions regarding hover, that sort of thing. We can set the duration of the transition as well as the delay and the speed curve, much like what you have with the animation stuff. Position is basically for where it will be on the page. We have a default, which is just like this. Z-index here is for its weight. Basically, it's so that it won't clash with other elements on a page. The higher the Z-index, the more weight it has, meaning that it is more prominent for a website. But then we also have some other position options here too. We have relative, which basically makes the module relative to wherever you are on the page. We have an absolute position where we can set it to be fixed to a specific point on your website. We have fixed, where again, it's more of a fixed point where it will always be there, even if you're scrolling. And that's kind of the main thing there. And then we have scroll effects, where basically we can set it so that it will stick to the top if we were to scroll. As you can see there, it will still stay there even if we're scrolling down. We can have a bit of an offset to the top, so it won't be fully on top of the page. We can set a limit for the bottom part of the sticky area. We can set some offset, some transitions. We can set some transform effects. We can have vertical motion if we want. And then here we have the motion effects trigger, where basically it will affect when it will start moving and scrolling down based on where you are, essentially. So once you're in the middle of the element, it'll start scrolling down, but you can set it to when it's at the top of the element or the bottom of the element, stuff like that. We'll save our work here. And that's what we have here. I'm going to show you some stuff here with the columns. So first off, this is all just for one row. We can add another row if we want by just doing this. We can add another row here, and we can have whatever things we want here, any other modules. I won't do that for now, but we can add another section. Hit here, hit blue section. We can select what type of section we want, what row options we'll have. We can have it be regular, which is what you've seen before. Specialty, which is for kind of special ones. You might have options for rows kind of stacked on top of each other for modules. And then you also have full width, which is basically whatever module you choose, it will be the full width of your page. We're going to go regular again, and we'll select, I don't know, just this. We'll do another text here. We'll just keep the default text here. So yeah, what I'll show you here is that we can have stuff in the section that will be different from what was in the row. So we'll go into the gear icon here for the section settings. We'll go to background, and we'll set a background. And as you can see, it will only be for this whole section, not for the section above. If we'll make that transparent, we'll go down here to the section settings here, or for the row settings. As you can see here, if we would go to background, do blue, this time it's just for the row, rather than the whole section. And then finally, if we were going to the module here, we'll go here, go to text, we'll add a background here also. And then here, it's much smaller. It's just the module rather than the whole row. And yeah, that's kind of the main stuff you can do with Divi's Theme Builder. It offers some pretty good, easy things to do here with how you want to set up a page. It offers just the right amount of stuff that's easy to use, while at the same time offering some advanced options if you want to add your own advanced HTML or CSS, or heck, even JavaScript. But yeah, that's kind of the cool stuff you can do there with your Divi Theme Builder. All right, and last thing I'm going to show you is the Divi Theme Builder. Now here, what you're going to go into here, you're going to see options for a global header, a global body, and a global footer. Basically, whatever you set these things to be, they will appear on every web page on your WordPress site. So let's say we want to have a global footer. You click in here, you build a global footer, and when you go in here, you're going to see what looks similar to the previous theme builder stuff for a WordPress page. We go in here, add a row, we'll do 2 here, we'll have one module be text, we'll have it be something really cool, you know, like whales are pretty cool. And then on the other side, we can have an image here. Let's do an image. I'll select just one of these images I already have here, like say this little lad, upload image. We might change the sizing a little bit. We'll make him a little smaller. There we go. And then we'll also add a background here. We'll add a background image, like say, just orange to really stick out. We can save this, and then we'll exit out, and I'll show you what this will look like on your page. It's saved now. We will exit. We'll save changes. And then we will open link. And now there we go. We have our global footer right there. And this will appear on every page. It's a global footer. However, we can also have other templates here. We can hit a new template, build a new template, and we can set what pages it will be on. We can have it be for specific pages, like just for the home pages, stuff like that. We can have it just be for, I don't know, just the really cool page. Let's add a footer here. We can update it here. Like let's change the background color to be like a full-on just like green. Or let's make that just green. We'll save. We'll exit, save changes. Let's go to the tab. Let's go to the really cool page. And there we go. It'll appear here. But one thing you will notice though, if you're to go to the home page, you'll see that it does appear here. One way to deal with this is to basically have it be, we go into the settings, we have the use on page for really cool, but we'll have it be excluded on the home page and on just specific pages here. The home, sample, good page, all that stuff. It's on the really cool page, but excluded from the other pages. We'll save. And then one thing you also want to do, you want to hit the disable global. All right, so we have everything all set up for the specific template here. We'll go into the website, and we'll see here that while this will appear on the home page, the global template we set for the really cool page, it will have specifically this one here. And there we go. You can set these nice global templates for headers or footers or even a global body for whatever pages you want. And that's what you can do here with your global theme builder stuff in Divi. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and have yourself a lovely day.